warm good evening to everyone present. I, Vikas Adhikari, would like to welcome you all to Genese Technology panel discussion on marketing in the new age. Starting the event with an interesting stat from Statista.com, 378 billion US dollars. This was the global spending for digital advertising in the last year, that is 2020. And it's forecasted to round up to nearly 650 US billion dollars in 2021. Now, those are pretty huge numbers. And this shows that digital marketing is a pretty huge market. Marketing is an ever-growing industry, and it's highly important for all sorts of businesses. We're excited to host a discussion on such a topic. Now, moving forward with the event, I'd like to introduce you to our esteemed panelists. First, we have Mr. Deependra Tandon. Mr. Tandon is the co-founder and director of Advantage Group, a leading full-service communication group. He is also the co-founder of Casadera and Tukilogic. Mr. Tandon is an accomplished professional in the marketing, communications, and advertising industry with over 20 years of experience in the field. Welcome, sir. As our next speaker, we have Mrs. Pranu Singh. She is the current head of corporate affairs, marketing, and branding for Standard Chartered Bank Nepal. She is an experienced professional in the banking and marketing industry. She is also an active member of the Toastmasters International and also a certified digital marketer. Welcome, ma'am. As our final panelist, we have Ms. Shweta Sherchan. Ms. Sherchan is a digital marketer, trainer, and entrepreneur. She is the founder of Sherchan Consulting. She has worked in digital marketing at the core for more than 4 years at various industry verticals. She is also an active member of Girls in Tech Nepal. Welcome, ma'am. Now, last but not the least, introducing you to our moderator, we have Mr. Anjani Phuyal. Mr. Phuyal is the global CTO of Genese Solution, a multinational company based on 7 different countries. He is also the founder of Girls in Tech Nepal chapter, the South Asia lead for women in big data, and a global AWS startup scout. Mr. Phuyal is well recognized in the Nepalese market for bringing prestigious brands like Zoom, Polycom, Amazon Web Services, Facebook, and Google, and serving the local customers. Welcome, sir. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over the stage to our moderator, Mr. Anjani Phuyal. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vikas, and thank you very much for all the organizing team member as well. And I would like to welcome all the panelist speaker as well. I would like to start with panelist Mr. Deependra. Mr. Deependra, you have such a long experience in the marketing industry. Would you like to share your perception on what marketing is and how it is actually taken in Nepal from the audience side as well as from the corporation side as well?
Thank you, Vikas, and thank you, Anjani ji. Yeah, coming to your question, marketing is evolving definitely in Nepal also, like it is evolving around the globe. In Nepal also, we're seeing drastic changes, especially the last 2 years, we've seen rapid changes happening in marketing. The old bastion is being brought down. The traditional mediums are being challenged. Digital medium is growing, but it has its own challenges. It's grappling with different problems of its own. So we are in a phase where marketing is going through a lot of shift. If you look at it, marketing has probably been one of the least innovated areas, if I can say so, in corporate. In the corporate world, you've seen a lot of changes in the financial sector. You've seen a lot of changes in the human resource sector. But marketing generally has stuck to its basics. And basically, marketing is making a promise to your consumer, communicating that to your consumer in an efficient manner, and delivering on those promises consistently day in and day out. That's what makes brands. And the way to do that, the process to do that is basically what marketing is all about. The mediums are changing. We've seen the mediums change from print to television, and now you've got digital coming on in leaps and bounds. But in the end, the basics of being genuine to your consumer, making those promises and communicating those promises in a manner that resonates with the consumer still remains the same and intact.
Thank you very much, Deependra. And adding to your definition and explanation, in terms of Nepal, so can you highlight some of the various types of marketing that has been leveraged throughout the last 10, 15 years and how you have seen the shift happening into digital?
I mean, it's my third decade in marketing and advertising in Nepal. So from our time, we've seen a huge amount of change happening. I think we've been among the lucky generation where we've seen marketing really evolving and coming in its own. I mean, from a time when we had just a couple of media, I mean, we had one television channel, we had one or two newspapers, Gorkhapatra and Rising Nepal, and one radio channel, that is Radio Nepal. So that is the time when, at least when people like us, our generation, when we stepped into marketing and advertising. And now we've seen the overall specter of marketing evolve tremendously. And with the opening up of the economy in the 90s, we've seen a host of media coming into, private media coming in. And television has evolved, print has evolved, right? Print itself has gone through a lot of changes. I mean, television, we've seen from being one channel, we are now have over 20 plus channels that broadcast their programs across the nation. And radio itself, our bandwidths are totally packed. We don't have bandwidth left for radio, FM radio. So we've seen a lot of changes, and not only that, in terms of marketing, we've seen the way marketing has been done. I mean, the creative process with the invent of computers and overall, I remember when we were just in college, advertising used to still be made on an artboard where we actually had to paste the headlines and the pictures and stuff like that. So now it's totally different. You have all the information on Google, and consumers have now, most importantly, got a voice. With the coming of digital, earlier on, we've seen marketing was largely one way, where companies decided what to tell their consumers, and they displayed their advertising messages through whatever medium, print, television, radio. But now with digital, consumers are talking back to the brands, and that has become is a pretty important step for brands to accept. And it's a challenge for brands, because sometimes if your delivery is not up to the mark, you've got consumers talking about it now, right? On a platform where they are reaching out to a large section of the society. So brands are being forced to become more accountable, more responsible. Communication is becoming two-way, and it's also an advantage if brands catch on to it, because then you can really understand what consumers are wanting and thinking. Earlier, you had to do a research to understand what consumers are thinking, but now immediately on real-time basis, you know what consumers are thinking and how what is their requirements. So marketing has definitely changed. It's from more of a telling job, it has now become more of a listening job, in a nutshell.
Thank you, Deependra. I think nicely summarized. Now it was a telling job, but now it's a listening job. It's not one-way communication now. It's a multi-channel. It's a dual communication, which is quite interesting shift. Now I would like to go to Ms. Pranu, who represents I think solely BFI or BFSI sector completely. So would you like to highlight how BFI sector has been emphasizing marketing, and how the transition that Deependra has mentioned has impacted BFI sector from the marketing standpoint?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anjani. Deependra ji has very well put up the entire thing in a nutshell, as you just mentioned. So representing the financial sector, obviously, I'm not like an expert for the entire section as a whole, but from where I come from, I've been in this industry for the last 14 years, nothing near to the 3-decade experience that Deependra ji has, but still 14 years in the financial sector industry. And before I even get into the overall aspect of marketing in banks or financial institutions, So it's my own personal experience. So 14 years ago, or during that time when I just joined the bank, I used to not work in marketing, but I used to work with the strategic department, the business department, and all. So at that point in time, marketing or branding, that department was quite tertiary. It was never like had a primary or even a secondary kind of a role. So there were products, there were services, and there were always marketing used to come at the end. Like, okay, we have a product, now marketing needs to go and sell it to the end users. But now, as and when, like as I speak, this day when I took up this role about 2 or 3 years ago, there has been a paradigm shift in the importance of marketing in my organization, and I'm sure it's holds true for rest of the industry as well. Because now marketing, like I sit in the executive committee of the bank, I sit in the strategic committee of the bank. So where, in the initial conceptualized phase of what the actual end user wants, what our customer wants, it starts from there. We are part of the entire client experience and not just like selling products or services for that matter. So initially it used to be like just to create awareness or instigate that interest about the product in the end user. But now probably it has extended to actual consideration, evaluation of how our products or services are doing, even supporting the purchase after service. So the end-to-end client journey, marketing is as much a part of the entire spectrum as any other department, be it or sales as well. So so that's what it is. So the importance of marketing at this point in time cannot be overemphasized, I must say, not just because I'm a marketer. So as I mentioned, I have also seen the business side of things. So I used to be in the corporate banking first, in looking after the clients' investments and all of that. And of course, having my own kind of interaction with the marketing department. So coming from both the arenas, safely it can be said that marketing is now the heart and soul, if I may not sound very over exaggerating, but that is what it is. Because a lot of things start from marketing and they don't end at marketing, because the entire spectrum revolves around what branding and marketing is all about.
Thank you, Pranu. I think nicely summarized. In Nepali, we have the saying, "Bolneko pitho bikcha, nabolneko chamal pani bikdaina." I mean, it may not be quite relevant with the chamal and pitho thing, but you rightly said, even though you do best customer service, you have nicest of the product, but if you do not actually highlight what you are actually giving to the customer, then probably the interest of the public may not be there. Nicely summarized. Thank you very much. Now I would like to ask next question to our panelist Shweta. I know Shweta personally as well. I know her journey from India to Nepal as well. So I'd like to take a little bit different perspective here, Shweta. So would you like to highlight what you have seen in terms of marketing in India and coming to Nepal? What is the similarities and differences that you have noticed?
Okay, so thank you so much. I feel extremely honored at this point to be sitting with two of the people who have 2 decades experience, and and Pranuji having already 14 plus years of experience. That's amazing, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity. And thank you so much, Anjani Dai. As always, I would like to address you saying Dai Nai. So yeah, basically, Anjani Dai question, like if I have to answer it, like our fellow panelists, the experience is. So we were fortunately born and brought up with the technology, with all the shifts that we right now is trying to cope up with. But for us, naturally, that's a part of how we grew up. So adding to that on Anjani Daiko question, so the thing that I have seen, the thing that I see right now is, I think mine is a bachelor's. I did it in India itself. So even before that, so quite a lot history with India, and trying to work in a technology sector, trying to work in a marketing sector in India. Let's say 4 years ago, when I came back to Nepal, for me it was completely this right word it's my country, this is where I was born and brought up, but then since you did like 3 years, 4 years working in a corporate sector in India, and then you again come back to Nepal, you all of a sudden realize that, oh my God, where am I? What is happening here? Because this is completely like left behind a lot in terms of a technology, So same for a marketing as well. So where I grew up, like all of us here to talk about digital marketing, for me, when I went to a digital marketing school, I was with the people who were 10 years experienced in a marketing sector, trying to learn digital marketing at that point of time when I joined this industry. People were 15 years in IBM काम गरेको, and this companies काम गरेको, different tech companies को marketing देखि लिएर Flipkart and all that side of startups, and these people trying to learn marketing along with us who are like just freshly out of a college, 21, 22-year-old, and trying to learn that. So I think there we have a lot to do, but as Pranuji र Deependra सरले भनिराख्नु भएको छ, that the thing that you guys have seen and the thing that we grew up with, definitely Pranuji ले अहिले भन्दाखेरि while she mentioned the fact that after service देखिको कुरादेखि लिएर building that community देखि लिएर having the both side of interaction, for us as a young people who have grown up with the industry, that's the first thing that comes to us as a naturally. Okay? So for me, that does not even feel like it's a strategic part. It's a natural part, okay? Because that's how we have been raised, and everything for us has been a fingertip away, and we want those kind of we expect that with the brands as well. So I think that's how I would like to start saying. Anjani Dai, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shweta, for nicely summarizing. I would actually say that the generation you are coming from is, born in the digital generation. It's a different generation. Like, I think, whenever you sort of start your career, you only see like, Facebook marketing, and probably, now it has come up to TikTok and Clubhouse and all those different kind of things. But again, it's so different experience probably with Pranu and Deependra. So I'd like to add a question to Pranu here. So, as you have mentioned, the importance, the soul and heart relation of, marketing and advertisement within the BFI sector. In terms of transition, so how you have seen the transition where, BFI was in the marketing side probably 10 years back, and the focus that is actually, happening going forward in terms of digital adaptation?
Yeah. So, okay, 10 years back, as I mentioned earlier, things are very, very different, okay? Digital body, the agenda was always there, but then it had not taken the front seat as it has over the last couple of years, especially accelerated by what's happened in the globe, the pandemic and all that. So digital was always there. Yeah, we have to be digital. We have to serve to people like Shweta ji, Generation Z and millennials and all of that. तर यति छिटो त्यो हामीले assimilate गर्नुपर्छ, यति छिटो implement गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने probably we did not decipher, or we did not expect at that point in time. But then given the last couple of years, 2020 भनौँ न, more precisely, there was a sudden acceleration in the digitization and the digital engagement. Now, my favorite word during the last 2 years has been catapult, catapult, really. So we were like just taken back, pandemic, but then it was such a force that we had to hit back, the way a catapult works. So there was no escape, we had to get that leap, digital leap, all the organizations, especially in the banking sector. Now see how we have evolved, as a sector as a whole, digital, everything is now available at your fingertips. You open an account at your fingertips, transfer money real time, everything is happening at the fingertips. Probably what we have had planned for the next 2-3 years, we had to sort of compress and get it done within like 5-6 months because of what is happening globally. And of course, same pace and marketing also has to evolve, right? So we are no more talking about newspaper marketing. We're no more talking about billboards. We're no more talking about out-of-home marketing strategies. We're probably no more talking about television because, YouTube and Anjani ji we're like this TikTok, the influencer marketing, absolutely these trends we all were aware of as, part of the syllabus of the digital marketing, but we did not know we had to implement it so soon. All right. So talking on behalf of the industry, the banking industry, it was like, so So the financial services industry was able to weather the storm, I should say, in terms of the digital, the tsunami that came in, and we all continued our operations. And I think it's a good job, which is shown in terms of numbers. Yes, there are a bit of probably the lag effect and all of it, but in general, we continued our services, we continue to service our clients and all. But then one thing that has become clear, that this is not a passing storm. The storm is here to stay for like ever, and then the change that this storm has brought is sort of permanent. So we have to find a way to live with this new normal, I should say. So our technical setup, our marketing setup, our marketing strategies have to revamp all that, and I'm sure it's happening. For us, it's happening because if I may have the liberty to say that, the budget allocation for the entire marketing budget, it's a significant portion now goes into digital part of it, taking away from the other mediums. So yes, I'm absolutely sure that same is the case with the other organizations also. So yeah, we don't have a choice right now. So it is absolutely aggressive at the moment. It's evolving along with everything else, like operational wise, evolved by RASA, digital evolved by RASA, site marketing, digital marketing, everything has to keep pace.
Thank you, Pranu. Nicely said as well. In fact, I think pandemic has been the worst in this modern era, but I would say, I mean, not in a good way, but blessing in a disguise. I think it has actually accelerated the digitization, not only in the advertisement sector, but probably in all the sector. I think because all you said that, myself working for a company, Genese, we have actually brought Zoom during the pandemic time. And we have actually seen the adaptation. Like Zoom has been, the website zoom.us has been like #1 website, I think, visited from Nepal, and hundreds of thousands of teachers, students has done the adaptation. Even, we have seen political parties, political leaders, they're all actually, taking the conference calls as a new normal. And, it has been a part of the life as well. And I think the same goes to digitization, like Pranu said earlier. People were not prepared, but there was no other choice because newspaper, they were stopped, getting distributed, and how to do the marketing. Going digital. Now I would like to go back to Deependra. So as we have seen, the digital marketing has accelerated so massively. But do you think, is the market actually ready yet for the digital marketing? Do we have like enough skills, or what is being currently practiced as a digital marketing, and where do you see the future, that we can, lead the digital marketing into?
Yeah, I think definitely there is a shift happening. But I mean, we in the industry, we are also analyzing where the budgets are flowing and, where the business is, growing. And there are two things I would like to divide. One is where the real money is flowing, and second is where the perception is flowing. And it's very important to understand, the difference between both of them. Definitely, as Pranu said, there has been a shift, and especially the pandemic, the natural shift that was probably due 5 years later on has now probably happened in a couple of years now. So we have reached at this point faster than we actually were prepared and planned to, reach it. But having said that, even in the last year and a half or so, which we as marketers have seen, is there has been budget increments in digital marketing. There has been budget shifts in digital marketing, but not to the scale that we are talking about. Generally, the perception is that everything has become digital. That's the money is not reflecting, or the spend is not reflecting that reality. It is happening definitely because there are two aspects to it. Digital marketing in general is far more cost effective or cheaper. You need lesser budgets to make a certain reach happen, which a traditional media, the budget volume was much higher. So in a percentage way, probably the shifts are happening, but in terms of the real value amount, probably it's still not as big as when we talk to clients, we talk to, in platforms like these, we talk and we say, okay, fine, everything is gone digital, the traditional media is collapsing. That's definitely not happening. right? So there, yes, there is a shift in balance happening, and there will be a shift in balance again once things normalize. You would see print coming back. When television was introduced, everybody said, print is going to die. Who wants to read the news the next day when you can just switch on the television and listen to and watch the news as it is happening? But it didn't happen, right? Print was very much alive. There is a believability factor on print, which a social media really doesn't bring in. I mean, people look at various news platforms on the digital sphere, but still read the next day's newspaper to believe what is true and what is not. There's a whole lot of, fake news or just perceptions floating around on the digital sphere, and it's very difficult for consumers to sort through these information as well. So for marketers to really be believable, their content to be believable, still they feel that print is far more believable. And audiovisual medium also will have its own impacts, right? Most of the content that is carried to digital medium today is still being designed for a 360-degree campaign, right? You've got television ads being adapted on a digital medium. You've got print ads being adapted to digital mediums. Yes, clients are definitely now realizing that digital, earlier on, which used to be a subsidiary medium, okay, fine, we do a campaign and we also use digital, now has become a very integral part, and campaigns are being designed, looking at the digital audience and looking at the digital platform. So there definitely is a shift happening, but I feel the perception is running faster than the reality to some degree, right? And yes, budgets are increasing, but it's still not significant enough, especially in Nepal. I wouldn't use this across other global platforms, but in Nepal, it is shifting. It is an important thing. Marketers, advertisers, advertising agencies, consumers, their consumption of various media is changing, but it's still, I mean, not as big as we generally talk about it.
You're absolutely right, because the perception of digital marketing, as I have seen these days, I can see, there's two distinct group there. Myself working with this marketing agency long time back, what I have seen was they were supposed to be expert. They used to have a creative directors who actually does really creative campaigns, and then there used to be like an event manager, and then the whole, the DNA of marketing, going to the customer, understanding the customer psychology and all those kind of things was there. But now with the change to digital, what we have seen is people like Shweta, or there are a lot of companies who are like born in digital itself. They seems to be more tech savvy, but then they may not necessarily have the DNA of marketing. And there I see a clash going on. Like, as a company, so I actually hire a marketing company who has come from 20-30 years of background, but then they may not necessarily have all the knowledge in terms of latest digitization platforms and everything. Or shall I go with the tech savvy companies who knows how to probably boost on Facebook and Insta and TikTok and those kind of things, but they may not have the DNA of marketing itself. So Deependra, how do you analyze this current situation? And I think you might have seen that, I wouldn't say competition, but you might have seen market being a little bit convoluted and dirty or muddy with this kind of situation.
No, very rightly said, and like Shweta very interestingly said, that she went to, when she was learning digital marketing, and you had one generation who had a lot of experience trying to learn what digital marketing is, and there are people like Shweta who just comes naturally to them, and they are wondering, what do you have to learn about this? It's the same thing like trying to teach your dad how to operate a computer, and then your daughter says, how can this be very difficult? It comes just very naturally to them. And that in itself is the challenge for the industry, ironically, because you have the decision makers, the CEOs or the marketing directors in companies who come from a generation who don't understand the digital aspect or aspects of marketing. And for them to let go of their, the need to be on top of their marketing campaigns is very difficult. And then you have the young generation coming in, and they're trying to push in the digital ideas, and they are just not being able to explain them to the generation who's making those decisions. So there itself is the challenge, there itself is the gap. And plus you've got digital, company now, digital as a platform itself is facing the challenges which traditional medium faced. Now we all are bombarded with advertisements whenever we are browsing a mobile phone or an app. How many do we even notice? And that's the same problem that traditional medium actually had, and why digital medium really grew. So now again questions are being asked whether the impacts on digital mediums are as significant as they were made out to be. So those challenges are there. But having said that, I mean, the reality is, I mean, we as a company itself, we have our own separate digital marketing wing, which we, it's a specialized unit totally. And the way you design a campaign for traditional media is totally different from how you think about a digital campaign. It's more faster. It's more, I mean, you used to make a television commercial, which used to be run for probably a year or 2 years. You can't think of that now in digital. You need a video every week, and that too is sometimes pretty long. You've got to talk about today's events. Just today itself, you've got this Messi thing trending when he's rejected this thing from Barcelona, and people are talking about his alternate professions. So I mean, this is the kind of speed, this is the kind of the turnaround that the digital medium requires, which a traditional setup doesn't really allow you to do that. I mean, a traditional advertising agency or a marketing department in any corporate, even in the BFI sector, I remember a time when banks never even had a marketing department. They're saying we are a finance institution, why would we need marketing? And marketing and finance were always like poles apart. But now you have the marketing department integrated into everything that the bank does, right? So I mean, there's a lot of shift in terms of the infrastructure that is required in this, the structures of organizations, right from people who are designing those campaigns to people who are accepting those campaigns, and to the mediums that are carrying those campaigns. So there's a whole lot of structural change that is happening. Campaigns are becoming more faster and swifter. Mistakes are being made. I mean, you don't spend a big amount of money anymore in making a video. You make smaller, lesser quality videos, but you can change that far more rapidly. So I think the entire way you look at, and still many companies in Nepal are still struggling to cope with that, because they have been doing this for many years. This is what they have learned, and just to do it in a different way, and that is where the companies are making a mistake, or brands are making a mistake, because they're trying to adapt what they did in another medium to digital medium. So they're just taking a print ad and putting it in an online cover or an e-Kantipur or a display advertisement or something like that. Whereas the digital medium is providing a lot more data. I mean, even today, unfortunately, the advertising industry is working without data tracking. We don't know what the readership of newspapers are. We don't know what the TRPs of television channels are. And digital medium comes along and is providing a whole lot of data, or at least the opportunity to read that data and analyze that data. But marketers don't know what to do with that data, because they've never worked with data before. Right? So, I mean, there's a whole lot of shift happening, and to be really effective, you have to think of it in a very different way. I mean, you've got to have a very young team. You have to have people who it comes very naturally to them to make decisions on the digital platform. And brands are now understanding that they are having separate digital marketing teams, which work parallelly with their marketing teams, but they work in a very different speed and very different manner now.
Great, very nicely summarized. And the gist I understand is there need to be a startup culture within probably in a digital agency as well, who actually understand the shift going quicker. Usually even I used to compare myself and then probably my friend's daughter who are like teenagers now. I used to say like, I am from a Facebook generation, and then they are not. they are in an Insta generation because they don't want to use Facebook because their parents are actually stalking them on Facebook. They rather use Insta where parents doesn't use Insta. And I think that's going to be changing now. Probably they will move into TikTok generation and then probably another thing as well. So now I would like to go with Pranu in terms of relating whatever Deependra said for BFI sector. So again, I used to wear multiple hats, work for one of the US bank as well, and I understand the corporate nature of the BFI sector where the change is not too easy. So in terms of BFI sector, like Deependra said, like the idea was initially, again, working in the marketing agency as well. We used to have a campaign designed this year, and then we used to replicate the same campaign next year for the Singh or maybe Christmas or something. Like that was kind of the trend, which is not going to work anymore, even for the BFI. So how is this change being adopted? And like Deependra said, is BFI just talking with the customer, or are they doing like dual communication as well?
So, yes. So we've talked a lot about why digital communication or why digital marketing is important. So we know that part, that it is very important. So that is happening or not at the moment. Well, so if I had to give you a bird's eye view, I think in general the intent is very much there. Kind of the dual communication. What is supposed to be there? People are slowly becoming aware that it's not just a one-way communication, as you and Deependra just mentioned, and we have to take the feedback from the customers, our end users as well. So, so it's like this. Now we are catering to people, the younger generation, people like Shweta. Now she's become like the epitome of, an example that we were going to refer to again and again during the entire conversation. So we're like, so Shweta is the representative of that entire cohort of people. Okay, so people like Shweta who probably, that the brand thing or the legacy and all, it doesn't matter to them. What happened, like 10 years before or 5 years before with an organization, or how, no matter however strong the bank's reputation, or all those features that were traditionally very, very important. Now these guys don't really care about that. So for them it's the end user experience of, if we are serving them on probably their mobile or whatever devices that they have. So in order for us to do that, it's absolutely non-negotiable that we evolve ourselves, we get inside their phones, we get inside their that electronic devices, whatever they have, and have that access to them via those mediums that they are on. So the entire architecture planning, all the assumptions, all the marketing strategies, all the digital marketing strategies have to revolve around people like these. They are the ones, 5 years down the line, it won't even take them 5 years. These are the primary or the priority customers of probably the what we're trying to target as of now, which is called the millennials, or the affluence of tomorrow, those kind of people. So it's now this year again. So why we have to emphasize on marketing, or even digital marketing for that matter, is that now again, going back to the year 2020, when the entire financial infrastructure was challenged, and we had to change the entire architecture, the entire strategy, the entire planning around marketing. So of course, as Anjani ji again mentioned, that there were a lot of positives that came, especially for the from the arena that we are in, and the speed at which everything changed. We have to cope up with that. Or the financial industries market. I mean, well, as I said, the intent is there, but now we cannot just sit back and say that, okay, we'll do it in 6 months time, or we'll do it next year. It has to, again, pull back, and then we have to start implementing it all, because it's like, if we are not doing it right now, we as a bank, I mean, my organization, we're all already at it at some point in time, but then as a whole, as a banking industry, it's no more about one-way promises. It's no more about we have a product and we're going to go and sell it. It's about what the customers want, and it's never as marketers, we always knew probably that the marketing needs to start from the customers and not the other way around from the organizations. But now this is the best time sort of to put it into practice. If we are not doing it, probably we should start it right now. The two-way communication that we're talking about.
Thank you, Pranu. Now the next question goes to Shweta. So Shweta, as you have become, representation of in digital sort of era, and as we have already discussed, the challenges on how probably should not be just copy and pasting, or we call it like just left hand shift sort of approach, like lifting the advertisement on newspaper and putting it on online cover or something in the digital form. So in order to go away from that transition, in order to do like dual communication with the customer, what are the skills required for a digital marketer, and what is your experience in terms of the skills that is available in the market for that?
Okay, so interestingly, am I audible, Anjani?
Yes.
Okay, so interestingly, मलाई चाहिँ एकदमै मन पर्यो अघिको प्रणुजीले भन्नुभएको र दिपेन्द्रजीले भन्नुभएको कुराहरू हैन. I'm actually quite this is for me also is like a sort of a reflection of what it is happening, because sort of you surround yourself with the same kind of people. So I am surrounded myself with a lot of young people, and someone who is probably or maybe someone who might be slightly old as the age, but then they think like us. So you sort of always have this echo around yourself. So this is very new perspective when I'm actually sitting and hearing all of this conversation. So okay, coming back to skill set, I think मलाई यो Deependra सरले भन्नुभएको एउटा दुईटा कुरा र यो Pranu म्यामले भन्नुभएको एउटा दुईटा कुरा I have made here a note of. Okay, starting with of course I want to come with the skills as well, Anjani दाइ, तर यस्तो भयो things about not reflecting in a finance, things about like it seems like the perception is running faster than the reality ma yesto bhairako chaina, or the B2B ma chai a lot of industry experience, and you being one of the industry pioneer leaders, one of the advertising world ma, I think I get it. I think it's very real. It's very real. Even Pranu ma'am le भन्नु भएको जस्तो अब we really, our generation, or at least people from even I think sometimes there are so many young people who are they start working also early. It's quite a different world completely. The target audience are even about the people who can spend the spendings are it's different already, right? So when you talk about digital marketing, when you talk about the market the skill set that people are bringing in, so I want to highlight this Anjani dai lai pani, and then to all our, I think there are really there's really the fight between trying, when you're working for somebody as established organization, the kind of a representation, the kind of people who are in the upper hierarchy, the one who's making decisions, and the people who are the executors, who are young ones. For me, still it's a kind of a culture shock just like so when I walk into a normal corporate organization, and I don't shy away to say that I don't want to work for any corporate organization. That does not make any sense to me, neither for people who comes from, and I'm just a representation of my generation. I feel that's not the life that or structure that we are sort of this generation is born and brought up with. We want things faster, and as the campaign you Deependra सरले भन्नुभयो जस्तै कि the kind of a campaign that we are running, the things are so fast. That's how people like the life as well today. So nothing is, you don't want to do same thing over and over. So yeah, coming back to the skill set, so त्यो कुरा चाहिँ मलाई एकदम भन्न मन लाग्यो. So I think this is a very different shift. Now another one is in terms of digital marketing and working in any organization or skill set that people are trying to provide. यो क्लासले गर्दा पनि that's the another reason why it's not reflecting in a numbers जस्तो लाग्छ के मलाई, because I do training for colleges, for organizations, for students, for learners, somebody who is already professional. So I'm doing a lot of training. For me, training is also a best way to reach out to persons, what's happening in their mind. And trust me, I get these emails where people are writing, I'm paying 8 lakhs rupees per month as a rent, and I have zero sales from last, I don't know, 1.5 years. So there are literally, I get these kind of emails where my organization is 40-year-old. How am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? How can you help me in terms of a training, or what do I need? So aileko lagi, when you plan of, I truly believe, and that's just how where the world is heading. We'll realize it as time will pass by, that everyone and anyone who's supposed to do the business in today's world will have to have knowledge on how they are going to market that on an online space. A lot of product today, while we are talking to other experts about digital marketing, normally apart from just doing social media, which is what Nepal we are stuck with, होइन, अहिले चाहिँ बल्ल क्याम्पेनहरुमा अलिकति पैसा spend गर्न थालेको छ. That's just the progress that we have seen in digital marketing in Nepal. The best is they do pay well to designers, they do pay to production house to create good content for social media. That's just have been what digital marketing in overall in Nepal. Slightly few here and there for lead generation, but that's also in such a old-fashioned way that those leads will have not even a 4% or 5% of conversion. So I would like to say, if you don't build your product around your marketing ideas, if you don't take that constant feedback, for us, when you're planning a digital marketing, we plan end to end, which means that's how it's supposed to be. But then you go to a traditional organization, you want to say things, and it just feels like you're challenging your own boss and you're telling you don't know how to do business, and that's just so awkward position. And I think that's one of the biggest factor where the money is not reflecting in terms of industries growing, that we all are talking about, oh, this industry has grown in the last 2 years, a lot of things has changed and this and that, but it's same if you look at it, or it has been slight change, but like I said, the change is only be with the social media stuff, but not the other aspect of it. So yeah, अनि skill set भन्ने बित्तिकै म चाहिँ त्यही नै भन्छु. And I think we would like to Anjani दाइलाई हिजो पनि मैले भनेको थिएँ, it's not that there are not good marketers in Nepal. Take it my word from me trying to always engage with a lot of people who are in the marketing world. There are great marketers in the world, but in Nepal too. But the fact that the best part about digital marketing is it has made us so independent. Like I've mentioned earlier, we really don't care about which brand is doing what. We want to know what's their story or how is it making an impact. We really want to know the impact side of it. It doesn't matter how much money you invest in your marketing. Some people are making raw videos, but we see there's some genuineness, and that's just what this generation is looking at. So that's another end of it. And the third thing that I would like to say, Anjani daiki kurama, skill set. Now our skill set is such a handy skill set ki it's for a lot of people who is slowly learning this skill set, and because we are born with this technology, the thing is we really don't have to work for some organization in order to make that in order to make that paycheck. That paycheck you can make it at the comfort of your own home, designing, doing, selling, producing what you love, what you desire. So I think that is also a very big shift and change, Junsai. I think everybody's needs to know and should be well aware of. So I think that's just what I would like to say.
Nicely said, Shweta. So I would like to add one more question to you. So in terms of actual ways of digital marketing, because it itself is a very broad term, and you could probably use maybe platforms like Facebook with Facebook boosting, or LinkedIn, or there's SEO as well, which comes as a part. So would you like to highlight some of the ways how we can do digital marketing and what opinion seems to be more prevalent in Nepal?
Okay, so I feel like something that's been a lot neglected is definitely two things, which is I feel like a lot of people are understanding SEO aspect and the importance of it, and agencies who are really doing good, they really have a great numbers of client and people are investing a lot. I see that same on the social media side, but what I feel like what people have not yet tapped into is definitely I feel like the content, the power of storytelling and content creation is yet very ekdamai pachadi cha mami. So that part is not being at all addressed also. I think apart from that, another thing that I see a lot people are, there is no like an ecosystem designing. There's no ecosystem designing, there is no funnel creation, there is no people expect that you show ad and people gonna buy it. Our generation is this generation. Let's say more mero generation mate bhandine, anyone who's like abo jo digital technology ma born and brought up boy ke abo yo generation ko like we don't make decision looking at it at a one shot, and generally in a human perception ne abo एकचोटी हेर्दैमा मान्छेले किन्छ भन्ने केही पनि हुँदैन. But now there's a different way to target people, हैन. अब so in terms of creating that funnel पार्टहरुमा त्यो केही पनि भएको छैन. Influencer marketing अस्तिसम्म मात्रै influencer marketing is celebrity holding something, but today I had an opportunity to work with a quite number of influencers where I have realized celebrity holding this product is not going to make any difference, like not even a zero difference. You might pay them a lakhs and lakhs of money, but it is what kind of authority this person holds and what he's talking about. Does this person has a similar background of expertise? And if that person says, even that person may have 2,000 people in their Instagram, but if that person is saying, oh, that person shares that story, or that person talks about that product, the chances of them getting more conversion. So I think these all things are still yet new. Definitely influencer marketing, definitely a lot of possibility in content creation and how the storytelling will go in a different format. That part, and of course, like putting I think पहिला चाहिँ कस्तो हुन्थ्यो दाइलाई चाहिँ I'm sure Dai is aware of. I'm not sure Deependra sort of Pranu ma'amलाई चाहिँ will it be a very new concept, the agile concept, okay, where you don't make the final product. Your final product will be made once you interact constantly with your customer, and that's completely based on the feedback basis. So today, if somebody says social media ma tapailai kehi feedback airako cha, kehi reply airako cha, and then if a brand says, oh, this is so mean, they are writing something like, I think the brands need to be so open and say, please, we are always open to interact, say, let us know what you want so that we can work. So the agile concept, okay? But here we are kind of so bhanam na euta way ma chai यस्तो भन्यो भनेर we take it kind of negative way, okay? But that needs to be changed as well if you are wanting to build yourself and serve the next generation. If it is only about the serving the existing already भएको audience, that if you want to serve next generation, then these all things has to be a very important aspect of your digital strategies, planning, execution, and yeah. So yeah, that's what I want to say there.
Really brilliant, Shweta. I think it's all about, failing fast as well, because once you print in the print media, it's all gone. Like, you cannot probably rectify, but the beauty in digitization is like, you can actually have an A/B testing. Maybe you can have like, one version of advertisement for, 20% of the audience, maybe another version on another 20% audience or something. You will see where the TRP is better, and then probably switch it completely as well. And even, get the beta testing feedback of your product as well. And if it doesn't go well, then, try to rectify the product, try to rectify the advertisement, and then push it again to the customer. I think that's really, the unique way and the beauty that the marketing has brought as well. I would like to, add the same question to Mr. Deependra as well, in terms of the, the practices that is being used for digital marketing and the prevalent platform that is being leveraged in terms of Nepal, at least as of now.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. As we talked about the shifts happening in marketing, there's a lot of shift happening in the digital marketing as well. And if you look at, not going too far, just 5 years, I think we've seen a huge shift happening in digital marketing as well. Earlier on, you had, companies just, for them, digital marketing meant, a display banner on a certain website. Right? So they were still using those traditional media concepts and just translating it into a different platform, right? The focus was more on getting likes rather than engagements. Right? And then slowly brands shifted to, okay, fine, when we have a platform where we can talk and listen to consumers, then we need to engage with them, right? And brands had shifted to a lot more engagement kind of activities that were happening, right? And that itself is now shifting. Like Shweta also just mentioned, influencer marketing. Obviously, influencer marketing is a growing thing in Nepal. But if you look at it on a global thing, it is already a declining trend on the global platform. And from now from influencer marketing, we are moving to micro influencers, which is exactly what Shweta was talking about, right? So this generation is probably not wanting a celebrity talking about a product and reaching out to a large number of audience, but you want to reach out to specific target segment who has probably just 100 to 200 people, but then they are more influenced on that. So micro influencers are becoming more and more important. And more than that, now you are seeing a shift to programmatic advertising and even on content-based advertising, right? On the digital platform. So yes, it is. I feel it is an evolutionary growth, right? Obviously, when people get into a certain new platform, brands get into or marketers get into a certain new platform, it will always be a trial and testing phase for a certain period of time. And people start understanding that, getting likes is just not good enough if it's not translating down to sales, right? You may have, and likes, you could easily even buy a likes, right? So yeah, now, I was just reading an article today itself, whereby it was talking about where the future of the next generation brands will be on whose websites are more optimized, right? So people will search for their own, like Shweta said, probably now to influence this generation to buy things. It's not going to be that simple and easy. Anyways, as human beings, we don't like to be sold. That's the consumer behavior pattern of human beings. If any brand tries too hard to sell, they generally end up failing. But if you have a very subtle kind of marketing, this thing, and which this new generation consumers also appreciate, the results are generally better as well. So as we speak, yes, the digital platform is also seeing a lot of change. And when we are talking about programmatic advertising, when we are talking about content creation, when we are talking about, not just creating content for certain brands, but just there's such a huge plethora of content. Even if you look at platforms like TikTok and all, there's so much random creativity going around. How do you channel that? It's still a challenge, still an issue, but there's so much random creativity going on. And how do brands capitalize on these small things that are going on? Now you don't have one big, Super Bowl moment or an Olympic moment or things. Now you've got very small events where brands need to really feel make the presence felt, right? So it's a just a new way of thinking, and we are seeing this. And the other question that you talked to me about was the platforms. Yeah, it's the same evolution that is happening on that front as well. So earlier on, if there were just display advertising on probably the 10 top, Nepalese websites, moved on to social media, like just talking about Google and Facebook. But now brands are moving on to many other areas. Like I said, smaller apps, smaller, web-based. So wherever the consumers are, brands need to follow them, right? It's not. Just to give you an example, try and correlate with this. Earlier on, you used to have, let's say, a car brand used to have one showroom, so the consumer had to go look at that brand there, right? And then it shifted to where consumers said, I'm not willing to travel. You come and open your showroom next to my house. So you had, number of brand showrooms opening up. And now the consumer is saying, no, I want you to come to my home, right? So get your car, I'll test ride it at my convenience, at my time. And this is how the brands are having to evolve, right? So yeah, platforms are shifting, the nature of advertising campaigns are shifting. And it's an interesting thing to watch, be a part of, and see how this transformation is happening.
Exactly. We started talking on content, and as we know, content is key, and data is absolutely, another key sector as well. Nowadays, it's being said that data is a new oil as well. All the countries, they used to fight for oil. Now I think they are fighting for data. Who is having more control on the data? Is it like Apple, or is it like Facebook or LinkedIn and all those kind of different platforms? I would like to reference some of the posts, I see on Shweta's Instagram a lot, where she's actually, taking a picture of different poses and saying, actually this is an Instagram picture, and actually this is a Facebook picture, and this is a LinkedIn picture, and those kind of things. I think the whole idea of like, creating the relevant content for relevant platform is going to be very, very key as well. And I think the diversity of audience we find, we may not necessarily find all the LinkedIn users on Facebook. So the kind of advertisement we do on LinkedIn is so different compared to probably what we do on Facebook, or probably on Insta, or probably on TikTok as well. So, taking this as a reference, I would like to ask a question to Pranu. So, because you mentioned that you are heading towards digital marketing, or you have already leveraged digital marketing platform. In terms of these skills, right? Probably getting expertise like Shweta, where she has the creative idea of what picture goes on which platform. But at the same time, it's not just about content. It's about what algorithm works best on LinkedIn, what algorithm best works on other platforms. So how do you find the talent for Nepalese market? And has it been like an organic way of sourcing the talent, or you are facing challenges in that area as well?
Absolutely. So with this, when Shweta was talking, I could resonate with what she was telling, when she was like really frustrated with this market, like you want to do so many things, but probably you may not get the right resourcing, or, the organizations are not willing to sort of adopt those ideas because they're like, come on, how can you teach us to do our business? All those other things. So yes, resourcing is, yes, I would like to say that it's a big challenge, because yeah, she very well elaborated on that fact. I mean, few people, as any other sector, they don't want to work in Nepal. They'll easily they'll easily get absorbed somewhere else, abroad, or things like that. So for something like digital marketing, for something like new ways of marketing, it is, for us as an organization, it is not very easy to get access to the resources. Now that I've met Shweta, maybe I'll connect with her separately on this. But then, well, I mean, the sort of conversations that we have internally, when we're sitting in a strategic meeting, or the conversations that we have with our agencies, like external agencies, and the conversations that we have with our international counterparts, they're on a very, very different level. So because by the advantage of you working in an international organization is that we do have access to what's happening. Like it's a very, very close access to what is happening in other parts of the world. And there, the level that they're in at the moment, it's like, I mean, I have to look like a child looking at a candy, like I wish I could like right away plug and play in my market, which is possible. I'm not saying because it's digital, because it's online, it's just we can sort of replicate it in the market. But again, there is a lot of challenges in terms of resources, so to get the right kind of talent, to get the right kind of mindset, and to get the right kind of mix within the organization also. Because for marketers in the financial industry, when you're competing with other financial industry in the same arena, so there's not a lot of differentiation in terms of products. If you see the advertisement, the products are by and large 90 to 95% the products that all the banks are offering at the moment are similar, right? So where is the difference? It's the difference in how you tell your stories, And to tell those stories, to tell those narratives in a better way than the other, you obviously need people, you obviously need that creative mindset, you obviously need people who are very well versed with the new technologies, the ever emerging technologies. So yeah, for us also, I'm sure it's for the rest of the industry also, it is not as an easy access for us to get the right talent.
You summarized quite nicely, and that's not actually the best part, because we have so much students actually who is getting produced every year, especially on again, this is another topic, like what category of students or which background we hire for digital marketing now. Does it need to be maybe engineering students, or those who are like studying tech, BIT, BIM, BSc, CS, IT, or does those need to come from like BBS or BBA or MBA and those kind of things? So how do you say, Pranu, in terms of hiring, which sector do you prefer, and what is the gap? What do you think is actually lacking from the academic standpoint for swift transition from colleges or university to industries like yourself?
Right. So if I were not in this session, probably if somebody asked me what degrees do I require to, get hired into a particular XYZ organization, I would say degrees don't really matter. I mean, of course, you have to have like a basic, educational degree, but then what matters is the right attitude, because skill sets can be acquired. But because I'm here at the digital marketing session, and because we are looking to probably, talking about hiring of digital marketers, obviously there are some technical aspects to it which they have to be armed with already. So because if already hiring them and sitting inside an organization and then going and getting those skill sets, it may be late for that. All right. So, just being audacious, I'm just saying that, when you are getting into a digital marketing space inside a corporate organization, especially inside an organization which has been there since long, and then there needs to be a lot of changes that needs to be brought about within the organization. So it would really help if you already have those skill sets on what needs to be plugged and played where, right? So having said that, it's not like I'm not trying to discourage people from applying or getting into like big companies which are already there in the market. But then some sort of skills training, some sort of trainings in the latest trends in the market, what can be done, what for organization like ours. We have now 14 years in the organization. I can safely say that we are very accepting to become very acceptable to new changes. We are open to ideas, we are open to, because that's where the way ahead is. We cannot not close ourselves and then say, okay, whatever we were doing earlier is the right way ahead. No, everybody has realized that we have to change our systems, we have to change the way departments integrate, we have to go digital. So all that realization is already there. But then yes, we are obviously in a continuous lookout for people who can give a method to the madness. So so I won't say like a complete this degree is required. Probably HR would do a better job at that. But yes, the right attitude, of course, and some sort of basic skills in terms of the trends in the market, in terms of the overall cohort of digital marketing on the techniques and skills, which can be replicated, which can be implemented inside an organization, inside a banking industry. A bank would definitely help.
Absolutely. Skills are actually key for this kind of roles as well. I would like to add the same question to Mr. Deependra. So you do a lot of hiring in your organization, I believe, and especially digital marketing being a completely new segment. What are the challenges you are facing in terms of hiring? And do you think the colleges or the universities or the course that is being designed to produce, are they actually there to produce this kind of talents, or it is very outdated and you think a lot of transition and change need to be done on that area as well?
I mean, there are one thing this digital movement, if we can call it, is doing is also breaking down the education barriers. So I think, obviously the traditional degrees or the bachelors or the MBAs or the engineerings are becoming lesser and lesser relevant if it's not attached to other learning associated in wherever you want to make your career. I mean, even in digital, obviously you have not many organizations offer those courses for somebody to learn how to become a digital marketer or stuff like that. In terms of a formal education, but you've got a lot of informal education around, where you've got smaller institutes, there are options where people can learn the basics of marketing and digital marketing and how things work, and how to use data, or how to things like that. But I think more importantly is what digital marketing is also doing is it's creating content in so many different areas. I mean, for example, a cooking brand, a cooking oil could have a cooking show being, produced or, brought about by some home chef also, it could be, right? So I think it's just breaking so many barriers where people can, you've got bloggers coming up in various fields, you've got, people of interest, even people just who are reviewing restaurants, and they are having huge, followers. Now, what degree would you associate with that? I mean, it's just, if people follow their passion and if they are doing it well, you will have brands following them. And we as digital companies are always on the lookout of people who are randomly creating this content. And for us, that is more key, rather than going through an interview process where we are hiring people, asking 10 different questions. I think what we like to follow, and which I always tell my team to be on the lookout for, is some really good content that is floating around, and then see how we can work with them. It could be as a part of the team, it could be as hiring them, or it could be just giving them the freedom and just being backing them, because what they bring onto the table is a very fresh new perspective, a very raw perspective. But what they lack is the understanding of how to build that idea around a brand story, right? How do you place that onto the story that a brand is wanting to tell its consumers, right? So they may be very good on the technology front, but again, we've seen a lot of agencies cropping up, small agencies who are basically technical people who want to get into social marketing, but they don't know how to read consumer perceptions, don't have the experience of the overall marketing insights, and making a marketing or an advertising plan, or executing those. So we as organizations can bring that to the table and allow these people to continue to create what they are best at, right? And it could be creating their blogs, it could be whatever they are good at. If it's photography they are good at, so be it. Why do we need very professional studios? Like I said, the old school of production is also changing now, where you had slick production, where you had everything taken care of, from the dress the person is wearing, from the props that are shown into that commercial, to being very raw and very natural, like it is something that a consumer will accept. Okay, it's something that I relate to. So it is changing a lot, and I think we as marketing agency or an advertising agency, especially in the digital this thing, are more on the lookout from what content is floating around and who is creating those kind of content, and how we can come in and work with these young people.
Absolutely. So, I was actually discussing with a lot of BBA and MBA graduates, and when I figured out what their interest is, a lot of them were actually inclined towards, I think there's like a measure of taking marketing and finance, and most of them are like, doing the finance because that's a gateway to, the banking sector and those kind of things. And marketing, for some reason, it isn't actually taken as a bigger sector, which I think with this overall discussion, we realize, how much is there in the marketing. Like there's a content creation, there's like, creating the whole marketing plan and agenda, and, understanding, probably having that, marketing DNA itself. And on the other side is more technology front as well. Probably if someone wants to do marketing on Facebook, then maybe getting expertise on the Facebook side, understanding the new ways of using pixels, and then probably learning the Facebook blueprint certification and those kind of things. If someone wants to go on LinkedIn, probably the same thing applies there as well. I think the new thing on TikTok, Clubhouse, and all the different platforms are there. I think in my opinion, it's more of awareness is required to make probably the students to understand how bigger is the marketing, the importance and the skill set that is required as well. And then probably, transforming these ideas back to the teachers who are actually, educating the marketing subjects as well. Because if we just follow probably what was built 15 years back as a syllabus, and then not relating how the marketing is being transformed in the current era, I think that feels like a challenge as well, which you rightly highlighted. And now we are towards the end of the session itself. I have one question which I would like to, float it to all of the panelists. So we have already discussed, how it is happening in Nepal. Maybe we're lagging in terms of usage compared to international. So the question goes to, how can the Nepalese market industry leverage international best practices, which we have actually seen? What can we learn from the international best practices, and how can the industry move forward taking those best practices from the international? So I'd like to ask it to Pranu, and then Shweta, and then to Deependra.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Anjani ji, again. This is a very, very relevant question. So as I was also mentioning earlier, for me personally, for us as bank, as the only international bank operating in Nepal, we do have that access to like 70 other markets. We can, like, over a call or over an email, we can know what's happening, what are the kind of campaigns that are running at the moment, where they're running at the moment. So as I said, it's so the good thing about this digital age is that nothing is like really hard if you really want to replicate it. But yes, in terms of resources, in terms of the existing infrastructure that we have, there could be challenges, especially for us as the banking industry, which is really highly regulated. Even if we want to do a lot of things, we may not be able to do it right away. For example, so Standard Chartered has a fully digital bank in Hong Kong. We launched it last year. It's called the MOX. So it's like complete end-to-end digital bank. There's no brick and mortar thing. You can open your bank over an app and do an entire array of transactions, like the regular transactions over app. Get your card in like 10 seconds and all of that. So all these things are already there, and if so for those trends to sort of get implemented in our Nepalese market, the infrastructure needs to be ready for that. And who's going to make that infrastructure ready? People like us, And that was, the marketing. Same goes for the marketing tools also. The tools, there's an entire arsenal of marketing tools available in the market, like internationally. And if we have to introduce them into the local market, it needs to be done from people like Deependra or Shweta, or even organizations like us who have that access to this kind of existing technique. So there needs to be a willingness, there needs to be a realization of what is happening and why it is important. Because as an organization, for me, yes, the resources are limited, investments are limited, so I have to make a choice between investing into a marketing technique or probably investing into a IT sort of a infrastructure, and what is the cost benefit analysis for the the two channels that I'm evaluating. So for me, if I put up a strong case saying, hey, if I invest in this particular marketing technique or digital marketing tool, X, Y, Z, these are my KPIs, and I will be able to do, ABC in so many things. So those kind of things, that is the case that I will have to put up for myself and then get those techniques in. Having said that, things may not be as simple for other organizations who don't have that access. But even if they don't have a direct access, there are ways, to do this, through agencies, through existing, the experts or the professionals in the marketing and in the advertisement sector. So that's what I'm saying. It's like there's an entire shift from a product obsessed mindset to a customer centric mindset, and there are so many tools which are available internationally, and of course many things are happening locally also. Things are already available locally also, but organizations may not be number one aware, or even if they're aware, they may not be ready to do all those investments. So there's a time where they have to do that analysis of what needs to be done and what is more important for them in terms of their entire overall strategy. So yeah, so I guess that's, international best practices are available. So it's upon us how to assimilate them, how to implement them if we want to do it. So I think it's not like a rocket science or anything. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Thank you, Pranu. You rightly summarized. I think if someone wants to do the research on their own, yes, a lot of best practices are available over the internet as well. Doing a bit of research can actually, create a great impact as well. Probably, I think Deependra would like to, highlight what his organization is doing as well in terms of probably bringing those practices and how, an agency like his can be leveraged probably in terms of, providing such services. So Deependra would like to hear from your side as well.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, going back to your initial question, Nepal probably is lacking behind in a lot of technological development in the digital marketing sphere from the international markets. But I really won't worry too much about it. Each market works at its own pace, and it's got its own. If something is working for the market, so well and good. If not, things will change. So markets have a very unique way of adapting to whatever is required for their survival and growth. But having said that, there are a few things that unfortunately have become more of an attitude attitudinal issues in the market. I mean, we've just come 2-3 decades of huge instability, and everything has become too short term for in every sector. I mean, in businesses, people open up a business today and they expect returns by tomorrow. So I think the overall focus of patiently building strong brands somewhere down the line has gone missing, and we as marketers sometimes get frustrated on that front, where even in terms of advertising, people want to just spend today, sell tomorrow, and get out of the market day after tomorrow. And that kind of an attitude really doesn't help an economy like Nepal, because look at, see what are the big brands coming out of Nepal. Most of the brands that we still call big today have been, here for a very, very long time and have been built much more longer. What are the new young brands that are coming up? So marketers also need to understand that, as things are changing, even the scenario in Nepal is changing, and there's a lot of, benefits accrued if you do your marketing well and if you build a strong brand, right? Unfortunately, advertising and marketing is still looked as an expense, and it is. If you look at our accounting system, we put it in expenses, whereas we put, let's say, a computer in assets. When you actually go and sell a computer, you hardly get any money out of it, but when you go and sell a brand, you get lots of money out of it. So entire system is that our accounting system is, I would say, is also quite outdated. And yeah, in terms of digital marketing specific, I think there are challenges that are cropping up, and one of the bigger challenge, and not only in Nepal, it's across the globe, is respect of individual privacy, right? We are also consumers, along with being marketers. We are also consumers, and when we get irritated looking at invading the private space of consumers, is something that is always been a debated point in digital marketing, right? And so that is also something where, if we learn from the best practices, a lot of companies and internationally, what they do is they leave those decisions whether they want to receive advertising messages on the consumers. If people are interested to follow certain brands, people will do them do at their own will. You cannot force advertising messages on consumers. You can't get them to consume something that they don't want to consume. So I think these are the issues which are going to be a major issue here as well. Telemarketing was a big issue a few years back in international markets. It still is. Email marketing was a big issue in many markets. It still is. And digital is going to face the same issue, and it is already being talked about and is already facing, because it has actual more access to the private space of consumers, right? Unlike a television, which mobiles are generally constantly on, right? So I think these are some best practices that I think the industry would have to follow. Otherwise, you can't irritate consumers to buy things, right? So I think that's something that marketers would have to learn and would have to accept, and find ways how to reach consumers with their willingness.
Absolutely, you rightly said. I think it's all about now, targeting the right audience with the right content. I think that's where the content is key, and probably customizing the messages, because you cannot be probably bombarding your customers with email newsletters every time. You might want to segment the customer, figure out which advertisement is relevant for them, where they're going to probably enjoy with the advertisement as well. I think the targeted audience in terms of geography or content interest, I think it's an interesting area, and that's where I think the content and data-driven advertisement is going to be key as well. So in the interest of time, I'm going to cut short this with Shweta, and I have one question for Shweta, where Mr. Kamal has asked, digital marketing is a vast topic for a beginner as me. My question is for Shweta, ma'am. Is there any specific topics to learn for a starter like me to sustain in this market in Nepal? Shweta, would you like to respond to this question?
Okay, so the question pani it's a question that repeatedly comes my way, but definitely depends on what you enjoy in digital marketing also. If you're the creative side of a person, then you might want to take up something which is social media, and you have some development background, or HTML, CSS, or this side where you enjoy a little bit of programming and all that sort of stuff, then you might want to look at the technical end of the digital marketing, which is more like a data side, or else going into technical SEO side. So it depends on what kind of and I truly believe in every so this is how I like to sum up when someone comes up and say, should I become a digital marketer, or and then first thing I would like to test, do you really want to become a marketer? Are you just following this whole everyone's like talking about digital marketing, so you sort of think like you also want to become a digital marketer or want to do digital marketing. So for the first, to understand whether you are just trying to follow the trend, or you think you want to test out. So that's the first question. The second question is, I always say this to anyone who would ask that question: please go online and actually try multiple keywords. Try to look at different marketers, like literally a digital marketer, and see if you can resonate with any marketer who are there already existing, and see if you want to become someone like that. So that's just how. So if you're creative side, you might want to go toward the content side. If you're the technical person, you might want to go towards the SEO side. If you're more towards the data or something, if you're a very persuasive writer, you can express yourself a lot, then content writing, email writing, newsletter writing, all that sort it's a legit, and a lot of money is there. And I see that in Nepal, a perception of a digital marketer is just limited with what you can do it in a social media. And I would just want not to look at it, not to go with what Nepal's culture is, and rather do research and do what in a global perspective people are doing. And there is so much opportunity. And I would suggest, another part is, please follow me on Instagram, so that if you will DM me, I will definitely try to help you out in any other ways. And that's just how I would like to make it short and sweet for you, so we can talk later.
Thank you, Shweta, and nice to advertise as well. So one last question to Deependra. It is from Praveen. So do you want to answer this, or shall I read it for you, Deependra? Or I'd like to summarize. So it's about marketing the electronics products. It actually has two part of the questions. One is more from the entrepreneurship, so I would probably avoid the entrepreneurship part for now, but more on how we can market non-expensive and non-fancy products with the digital marketing is probably the question.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, because what digital marketing has done is to some extent level the playing field. I mean, what traditional media had probably become a little too expensive, and smaller brands and smaller startups always found it difficult to spend large amounts of money competing with larger brands. But now what digital marketing has done is it has allowed brands to reach out to micro markets, to micro fragmented markets far more efficiently and more cost effectively as well. So I think that is the answer in the question itself, whereby the digital marketing platform allows startups the equal footing, which is the same access is there for bigger brands as well, right? And it's a far more democratic medium. People, what a Facebook ad would cost to a Coke would also be the same thing that costs probably to some other small startup brand as well. Unlike in big and traditional media, where the bigger spenders always have an advantage, and they have the option of, just by sheer volume of their advertising spend, drown other smaller voices. But that is not the case in digital platforms. So I think if you have fancy products and services, digital marketing is the way to start. A lot of small companies, small brands are now finding it that at least they have a platform where they can reach out to their consumers and talk to their consumers in very efficient ways. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Facebook and Google itself. Like I said, marketing is becoming very, even consumer behavior is getting very, very fragmented. So earlier on, you had everybody gathering around the television at 8 o'clock, having dinner and watching the news. Now you've got 5 people looking at 5 different devices. One, somebody's on the mobile, somebody's on their iPad, somebody's on the computer, somebody's watching TV, somebody's listening to music, to Spotify or whatever they get their hands on. So, it is a challenge for marketers to reach out in this kind of fragmentation, but it is also a benefit because then your advertising money is not wasted. You just reach out to the people you're wanting to talk to. You take out a television ad, you're reaching out to the entire family of 5. And not all of them are consumers. Whereas now you can cut down your budget and just talk to the guy on the phone if he's your consumer, right? So I think that allows a lot of freedom to brands as well, and it's just more democratic platform.
Absolutely. I really like the word democratic. I think, previously running a television ad, you need to be corporate, but now, you run a very niche advertisement, you find your niche customer segment, and that's where, your business, you don't need to showcase your brand to probably the whole of the Nepalese population or something similar. So that's the beauty of digital marketing as well. And personally, I do a lot of electronics sort of demos and expos. So you can actually, take a video, put it on YouTube, and then just, let it be, just do a demos and those kind of things. And that's where the attraction can start as well. I really wish you all the best for your, electronics startup as well. So having said this, I would like to thank all of the panelists for their time and then wonderful discussion that we have here today. I hope I did justice to all the panelists as well. And I would like to request Vikas to, run the poll survey before we end the session. Vikas, whenever you are ready.
Surely, Dai. It was an interesting discussion. We'll be releasing the poll in just a minute. The poll will be on the screen of the participants. Please give your responses on the poll so that we can get feedback regarding the event, and it will also include questions regarding further events, similar events that we'll be doing.
Okay, we probably do 30 seconds until we finish the poll. And lastly, I would like to thank all the panelists and hand it back to Vikas for the closure of the event. So back to you, Vikas.
Thank you, Dai. It was really really interesting panel discussion. All the people, they have different area of expertise in different fields, long areas of expertise. It was really insightful to hear their views, how they've seen the Nepalese marketing industry. As a young person starting in the marketing industry myself, the marketing area myself, I got to learn a lot of insights and views they have regarding marketing. It was really interesting for me. So I'd like to thank all the participants, all the panelists for their insights and views, and also to all the participants over Zoom or Facebook for patiently listening to our event, for supporting our event. Thank you, and have a good evening.